Hey, this is Lindsay J. Murray presenting about ability grouping. To start it off, ability grouping is the practice of dividing students for instruction based on their perceived capacity for learning. The practice has come under a great deal of scrutiny over the last 30 or more years. Ability grouping's detractors claim that students who are considered low achievers do not receive the quality of education provided for those students who are considered high achievers. Some even call ability grouping another form of segregation. Supporters say ability grouping improves student achievement due to the fact that teachers are better able to plan meaningful instruction that's better geared toward each student's skills and concept knowledge. Ability grouping is also found in every school across America and is prevalent in schools around the world. Ability grouping's abolition is not likely to occur anytime soon, given that it's so thoroughly entrenched in the psyche of educators all over the world. There are a few different types of ability grouping. They fall under two main headings. Homogeneous grouping is where students are grouped based on ability or some other characteristics. And heterogeneous grouping is where students are randomly placed together without regard for their ability or any other traits. Within class grouping falls under homogeneous grouping. It's a small group interaction in a single classroom, usually based on ability. It's pretty commonly found in elementary classrooms for teaching reading and sometimes math. Between class grouping, students are divided into different classes based on their ability, and this is also known as tracking. It's found more in middle school and high schools. But a little bit of that exists in later elementary school grades. And then there's cross-grade or non-graded grouping, where students are grouped on their ability to grouped on their abilities, and it has nothing to do with grades. A lot of supporters say about ability grouping is that planning is easier for teachers. Higher performing students are taught on their level. Lower achieving students are more comfortable and receive appropriate remediation. Students participate in class better when they are grouped with academic peers, and many think that parents of higher achieving students are happier because their students are more challenged in more difficult classes. The detractors of ability grouping say that most grouping practices are based on subjective appraisals of ability, and they are also based on narrowly defined perceptions of intelligence. The detractors say that lower performing students are often stuck in the low track for their entire academic careers. It also claim that labels that are placed upon students, whether in the low track, the middle track, or the high track, severely impacts student self-perception. And also less qualified teachers, they claim, have been found to teach lower track classes, where higher qualified teachers have been found to teach higher track classes. And as mentioned before, some claim that it is outright segregation, where minorities are generally found in the lower track and white students are found in the higher track. With the implications of ability grouping, one study out of Hong Kong actually stated that ability grouping was very positive in China, but the authors also admit that this could be due to Chinese culture. But that's not the case around the world. There's a lot of mixed reviews on ability grouping. One study shows that students in kindergarten showed a 2-point improvement overall when ability grouped over non-ability group peers. Another study showed that grade skipping or completely bypassing a grade or taking separate classes show a significant impact on gifted student performance. High school tracking data states that higher performing students showed much better value-added scores than lower performing students, though each group participated in a tracking program. So since everybody was doing tracks, the higher track actually benefited those kids far more than the lower track benefited the kids that participated in that. Other data was collected in a large sample of schools in one study, and it showed that higher performing students showed significantly lower value-added scores than the lower performing students when they were grouped heterogeneously. That meant that with no ability grouping, lower performing students did better where higher performing students did not. And with a really large longitudinal study that was conducted over 4 years in a California high school, tracking was almost completely done away with, and there seemed to be a large growth found in middle and lower performing students, and their dropout rates improved as well. So that is evidence for what detracking or retracking could possibly do. Found with best practices after looking at all the research, higher performing students do seem to thrive when placed in ability groups with their peers, but lower performing students appear to perform better when grouped with a mix of students. Incorporating these two approaches into schools would seem to benefit everybody, but that would have would be definitely difficult to be able to pull off. From what I took from this research, I've developed an action plan where I will create a control group in my classroom this year that uses ability grouping, and then a test group that uses more heterogeneous grouping. I'll split the class into 2 equal parts. Hopefully that works out. The first part will be divided up into your common homogeneous grouping with low, medium, and high groups, and instruction will be implemented according to their needs. Basically the way that myself and many other teachers at the elementary school level have taught ability groups in their class. And then another way will be for the test group, it will have students grouped with an even distribution of low, medium, and high kids to see how they perform. That'll be more of a heterogeneous grouping for that half of the class. I'll use basically what's the weekly TCAP reading tests, formative assessments, and scores based on cooperative learning as a measurement of how the grouping strategies are impacting their learning, just to see if one really is better than the other. After 4 weeks of this approach, I will study the data that's gleaned from the assessments and try to draw some conclusions based on how those strategies affect student gains. And that's pretty much it. There's the references that were used in this, and that does it. Thank you.